I saw Masquerade and I want to talk about it. I've already posted a video with some of my spoiler-free thoughts and analysis, but in this one, I'm going to talk specifically about some of my personal experiences during the show, so there will be spoilers for things that happen or could happen during Masquerade. So if you want to be completely unspoiled, you have now been warned. Please scroll. Okay, now that if you're here, you've agreed to hear some spoilers, I want to talk about the carnival scene. If you don't know what I mean, during the show, when Christine is down in the Phantom's lair and she first unmasks him and he freaks out and gets upset with her and screams, "Damn you, you little prying Pandora!" And in the original version of the show, we get a cut back to the notes section. In Masquerade, instead, we see the apparition of a young version of the Phantom, who I'm going to call young Eric, even though I don't think they use the name Eric in the dialogue for the show at all. Although I'm pretty sure I saw it written on some of the signage in the carnival area. Anyway, a young version of the Phantom who is wearing tattered pants and suspenders and a burlap sack over his head walks into the space where you are, and the Phantom, older Phantom, sees him and says something along the lines of, "I will never forget what they did to me." And then young Eric starts sprinting out and leads the audience up this escalator into a space that has been designed like a carnival. And it's creepy and atmospheric, and there's mirrors, and there's carnies wandering around, taunting or interacting with people. I went to see the show with my husband, who is such a trooper because I think his biggest fear might be audience interaction. So he was pretty much terrified the entire time. He was walking ahead of me through this hall of mirrors, and then out from behind one of the mirrors stepped young Eric, still in his burlap sack, still in his torn up trousers. He's all muddy and perhaps even bruised. He reached his hand out for me, and so I took it because this is my ultimate dream come true. Oh my god. Young Eric, still holding my hand, pulls me out of the line away from my husband, who quickly got shuffled forward by either other audience members or the cast members themselves. I wasn't paying attention. I don't know. I'm sure he was fine. He pulls me around a corner and sits down and looks up into my eyes, and I see just these giant brown eyes looking at me through the holes in the burlap sack, and he looks absolutely terrified. He's physically shaking. He's clutching my hand in both of his and just kind of sadly whimpering, not even really saying any words. And I know who this character is. He looks very similar to the version of young Phantom we saw in the Joel Schumacher movie, Phantom of the Opera, although this one is an adult instead of a child. But, I wanted to play along, and so I was asking, who are you? Are you okay? Something like that. Do you need help? And he couldn't answer me. He just kind of kept holding onto my hand really tightly and looking up at me with these eyes that were just breaking my heart. So we're in that back alcove for a little while, and he's getting increasingly panicked, and then one of the carnival workers comes barging around the corner, screaming at him, "What are you doing in here? Don't scare the guests! Don't freak out the guests!" And I, desperate to just flex a little bit of improv skills, tried to kind of match the energy and say something like, "He's not doing anything," or "I'm a paying customer," and I'm sure all that came out was, because, dream coming true and all that. So this carnival worker, gently but firmly, moves me aside, and of course I comply because I'm not insane, and he bodily grabs young Eric, wrestles him out of the room, and I hear other people kind of freaking out as they see what's happening, and drags him back through the hallway and ends up putting him in the cage where young Eric sits for the rest of the carnival scene. One of the only things that I intentionally knew going into Masquerade was that during this carnival scene, you could go and interact with the young Phantom while he's trapped in the cage. And if you're kind to him, he could hand you a letter or perhaps tie a bit of twine around your finger or your wrist. And I really, really wanted that interaction. But when I got into the carnival room, I couldn't go over to where he was. I was physically on the opposite side of the room, and he was surrounded by other people who were very interested, and I didn't want to be that person who's like pushing through other people who were having a great time so I can get the exact experience I wanted, right? But then that same carnival worker who had caught me and young Eric in the little alcove comes up to my husband and asks, "Are you a virtuous soul?" or something like that. And my husband, again, absolutely terrified out of his mind, immediately just shuts it down. Nope, no, I'm not. No, no. So he turns to me, and I think he recognized who I was, that he was the person that I was the person that he had found earlier, and he said, "Are you a virtuous soul?" in a very different tone. And I said yes, because I was in improv mode, and you say yes. So he stands me up on a crate and wraps a rope around my neck and takes one end in his hand and gives the other end to my still terrified husband and says, "This is the rope of judgment, and it will determine whether I have a virtuous soul or not." And he made a big hullabaloo about the fact that my name was Grace. He thought that was very funny, and a fun little magic trick and an opportunity to feel like a part of the show. And we had a really great audience the night that I went, and I just remember looking out at a sea of very encouraging faces of people who were fairly sure I wasn't about to get, strangled to death. So they do the magic trick, the rope of judgment snaps because I am found to be a virtuous person, thank goodness, because I, really didn't want to get strangled during the show. So I step down from the box, the carnival barker goes up on stage and starts to introduce the next act, which is going to be young Eric. And I turn to the side and I see standing next to me the older version of the Phantom, who had quietly snuck in to the back of the crowd. And he was watching the events with us. As far as I know, nobody else in the audience had seen him or noticed him yet. And he and I shared a little bit of eye contact. And he didn't say anything to me, but it certainly seemed like he was conveying, "This is my memory. We're reliving this together." And I don't think there's any way that the older actor could have known that the younger version of his character had specifically interacted with me earlier in that scene. But the look that he gave me in that moment was so tender and heartfelt and heartbreaking that, as an experience for me as an audience member, it felt like this beautiful full circle moment. Like that he had almost remembered that he'd reached out for help and almost gotten it. And I don't know if that's planned. I don't know if it's possible to plan that or if it was just incredibly lucky. But I feel incredibly lucky. There are so many parts of the show that have stuck with me and that I've continued to think about, but that moment with young Eric is the one that I cannot get off my mind. I simply cannot. That actor playing the young version of the Phantom did not have many scenes as the young Phantom and no dialogue. He was limited only to body language and a very limited range of vocal sounds, and yet it was such a moving, vulnerable, achingly sad performance. I can't stop thinking about it. It was truly beautiful. When we got our programs at the end of the show and I was able to see who the cast was, I saw that the boy in the cage, or young Eric, was Dario Natarelli, and he was not listed as one of the original potential boy in the cage actors. He wasn't listed in the program as one of the understudies, so maybe he joined the cast after the programs had been finalized or something, but I wanted to shout him out specifically because his performance was mesmerizing and the interaction that I had with him was absolutely astounding, and it shaped the entire night for me. So, very, very, very well done, Dario. I could probably talk about this show endlessly. I might just keep talking about the show endlessly, but I would love to hear from you about the kinds of interactions that you had when you went to see the show, because I think that that is such an incredible aspect of Masquerade that I'm just fascinated by. To close out, I want to say that magical interactions like this are really only possible if everyone is respectful and kind. So if you do go to Masquerade, please be the kind of audience member that allows for the magic to happen by respecting the cast and the crew and their bodies and their space and giving them the chance to do this art safely.